Good evening. My name is Keith Brandt, and I'm the pastor of the Monroe Street Christian Church in Los Angeles, California. Welcome. This is our Wednesday evening Bible study and prayer meeting. And if you've been in tune before, we are continuing and getting close to the ending of our study of the book of Daniel. And this is from the study guide, The Smart Guide to the Bible, by Damon R. Duck and Larry Richards, Ph.D., and they have all sorts of other books of the Bible available as well. And so we're picking up in Daniel chapter 11, and we're going to pick up at verse 20, and we are listening to an angel speak to Daniel about things that will be forthcoming in his time and that will proceed after him, and even connect with the great end time prophecies that we're moving into ourselves right now as we're getting ready for the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ. And he is continuing his explanation of Antiochus the Great, who is a ruler that he is the ancestor of Antiochus Epiphanes, and he could have been living when Antiochus Epiphanes was a child. But anyway, we're finishing what the angel is saying about Antiochus the Great. It says in Daniel 11:20, "There shall arise in his place one who imposes taxes on the glorious kingdom." Remember, the glorious kingdom is Israel. "But within a few days he shall be destroyed, but not in anger or in battle." Here the angel prophesied the future of the successor to Antiochus the Great. He would send out the tax collector to keep payments going, but shortly thereafter would be destroyed. He would not die, however, in anger or in battle. Antiochus the Great was succeeded by his oldest son, Seleucus Philopater. Seleucus inherited the large debt his father agreed to pay in order to obtain peace with Rome. Remember, Rome now is surging as an up-and-coming large influence in the world. He raised taxes to meet the agreement, but his nation was so impoverished he had trouble collecting them. By the time he neared the last year of the 12-year taxation clause, he was in financial crisis. He desperately instructed his treasurer to go to Jerusalem and confiscate the gold and silver vessels that were being used in the temple. A short time later, someone poisoned him. So that's the end of Antiochus the Great. Oliver Green says, in each instance concerning the battles, the victories, and the defeats of these kings of the north and of the south, we see over and over again that the wages of sin is death, and God is not mocked. Whether we're a king or a peasant, if God is for us, who can be against us? But by the same token, whether we are king or peasant, if God is against us, we are defeated. The next verse is verse 21, Daniel 11:21. I missed a paragraph? Oh, I did. I'm sorry. "The Antichrist will not die in battle." I'd like to add either, because Daniel is not specifically talking about the Antichrist there. The reason the Antichrist is mentioned in this study at this point is because these rulers, these evil rulers, can represent very clearly some of the rulers that will come forth in these end times, eventuating in the coming of the Antichrist. The Antichrist will not die in battle. He will be captured by Jesus at the second coming and thrown alive into the lake of fire burning with brimstone. Daniel 11:21. And in his place We're talking about Antiochus now. Antiochus the Great. And in his place shall arise a vile person, to whom they will not give honor or royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. The angel told Daniel the next king to rule would be a vile person. Although he would be king, he would not be the true heir to the throne. He would invade the kingdom, which is Israel, during a time of peace and seize it by intrigue, sinister schemes, as it were. Antiochus Epiphanes was not the true heir to the throne. After Seleucus Philopator tried to confiscate the temple vessels, he was poisoned. Remember, his father had told him to go do that? So he's poisoned also. He had two sons. Demetrius, the oldest, was in a position to be crowned the king. But Seleucus Philopator had a younger brother, Antiochus, who was an extraordinarily good manipulator, like his father Antiochus the Great. Antiochus was wicked and cunning, and like his sister Cleopatra, who was married off to Ptolemy Epiphanes of Egypt, he was deceitful and treacherous. He used his manipulative skills, treachery, and deceit to acquire the crown over his nephew Demetrius, the rightful heir. Antiochus later became known as Antiochus Epiphanes. He is widely recognized by prophecy experts as a persecutor. He was a persecutor too. A precursor or forerunner of the horn in chapter 8. What the angel has to say about this man exemplifies what the Antichrist will do at the end of the age. Key words in the next 3 verses that prefigure the Antichrist are peaceably, intrigue in verse 21, and deceitfully in verse 23. Antiochus Epiphanes picked up where his father Antiochus the Great left off. He was another king of the north, Syria, who attacked the king of the south, Egypt. Before he did that, he convinced everyone he was just moving a small number of troops to the Egyptian border. He actually moved a large army, but he had to move it into Israel before getting to the Egyptian border. You can see how Israel gets stuck with a lot of stuff because of where their location is. John F. Woolward says, beginning with verse 21 through verse 35, a major section of this chapter is devoted to a comparatively obscure Syrian ruler who was on the throne from 175 to 164 BC, previously alluded to as the little horn in Daniel 8, 9 through 14 and 23 through 25. He reigned in the days of the decline of the Syrian power and the rise of Rome to the west, and only his death in 164 BC prevented his humiliation by Rome. From the standpoint of Scripture and the revelation by the angel to Daniel, this was the most important feature of the entire Third Empire. Deceit can only prosper where there is ignorance. When the rapture occurs, the only true leaders and religious people left on earth will be lost. The Antichrist will rise to power in a world of biblical ignorance. His deceitful ways and sweet-sounding words of peace and prosperity will meet no resistance because people will not recognize him for what he is. Our national leaders are diligently working to establish a world government. That government will divide into 10 kingdoms. The Antichrist will not be given the honor of being king over one of those kingdoms, but with Satan's help, he will seize the world government through intrigue. Now, Daniel 11:22 will speak of a powerful military leader with his own high priest. Daniel 11:22. With the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and broken. He's speaking of the former enemies. And also the prince of the covenant. Now, that, you might think that may be referring to Jesus, but it isn't. The prince of the covenant is somebody who's in charge of the covenant ministry in Israel, which would be the high priest or a high priest, all right? This angelic prophecy states that the contemptible king would destroy a great army. It is also predicted a prince of the covenant would be destroyed. Antiochus Epiphanes attacked Egypt, and the Egyptians struck back with a large army. The casualties on both sides were high, but Antiochus Epiphanes won the battle and captured the Egyptian king Ptolemy Philometor, the son of Cleopatra, Antiochus's sister. So this is kind of a family affair at this point. Antiochus Epiphanes broke so many agreements and betrayed so many people, it's difficult to say who the prince of the covenant was. One could pick from several examples. The best guess, however, seems to be the Jewish high priest Onias III. Antiochus Epiphanes had him deposed and murdered. Then he appointed the brother of Onias III, a man named Jason, and to be high priest of Israel. With the approval of Antiochus Epiphanes, Jason persuaded many of the Jews to abandon their faith. The Antichrist will be a powerful military leader, and he will have his own religious spokesman called the false prophet, who will cause multitudes to follow his anti-Christian beliefs. So you can see a similarity. Ronald Shower says, Onias was called the Prince of the Covenant because it was the high priest's responsibility to see that Israel kept its covenant with God. Deceit and more deceit. Daniel 11:23. And after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully, for he shall come up and become strong with a small number of people. Here the angel was prophesying the fact that the contemptible person Antiochus Epiphanes would make an agreement with his captive Ptolemy Philometor. But Antiochus Epiphanes would be deceiving him. With only a few people, he would rise to power. After Antiochus Epiphanes defeated Egypt's army and captured Ptolemy Philometor, the Egyptians quickly crowned Philometor's brother, Ptolemy Ergetes, king. Antiochus Epiphanes wanted to march against him, but he had lost too many troops when he defeated Ptolemy Philometor. He saw the crowning of Ptolemy Ergetes as an opportunity to divide the remaining Egyptian forces, to take more spoils, and perhaps to have himself crowned king of Egypt. He made an agreement to help his captured nephew, Ptolemy Philometor, regain the crown in exchange for Philometor's help and support against Ptolemy Ergetes. It worked. Truth was thrown to the ground. Ptolemy Philometor helped Antiochus Epiphanes, and his support strengthened the Syrian king. But what Philometor didn't know until later was the fact that Antiochus Epiphanes was just tricking him. Nice guy. It was a deceitful tactic on the part of Antiochus Epiphanes to make himself exceedingly great. Deceit will be a way of life during the tribulation period. The Antichrist will perform satanic miracles and deceive many. Jesus said that many false prophets will appear and deceive many people. He said false Christs and false prophets will rise and show great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. Now, the elect means believers, but it says if possible. It doesn't say it is possible, all right? Signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, the very elect. Matthew 11:24. that he will become strong with a small number of people has just been spoken, is a reminder that the Antichrist will begin as the little horn, Daniel 7:25. He will rise from obscurity to a position of world domination with the help of a small number of world leaders. 10 leaders will come on the scene first. He will rise among them. 3 will obstruct him. He will deal with them, and the other 7 will give their power to him. And this is something we need to be watching in the news, because there are certain ones that are coming to the forefront now. So when we see something like this choreograph in front of us, we'll know that the time is really at the door. Antiochus Epiphanes was a living example of the Antichrist, the wicked man who will gain control of the whole world during the tribulation period. He talked peace and planned war. The Antichrist will use sweet-sounding words to bring in a reign of terror. The following chart highlights his dishonesty. The characteristic: he shall cause deceit to prosper, Daniel 8:25. He will break his covenant, Daniel 9:27. He will be a liar, 2 Thessalonians 2:9-10. And he will be a worthless shepherd, Zechariah 11:16 and 17. A wicked Robin Hood. Remember Robin Hood? Gives to the rich. Steals from the rich, gives to the poor. Daniel 11:24. He shall enter peaceably even into the richest places of the province, and he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil, and riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. So he's going to appear to be Mr. Nice Guy, giving people all sorts of stuff. This angelic prophecy states that Antiochus Epiphanes would invade the richest provinces of Egypt at a time when they feel secure. He would take plunder, spoil, and riches, but not keep it. He would give it to his followers, and for a time he would plot to overthrow of the Egyptian strongholds. The covenant of Antiochus Epiphanes that he made with Ptolemy Philometor put many of the Egyptians at ease. It did not occur to them that they were dealing with a thief and a liar. At a time when they felt secure, Antiochus Epiphanes raided some of the richest provinces of Egypt. He took wealth and territory that none of his ancestors were able to take. Then, like the head of a gang of thieves, he distributed the loot among his followers. That brought the loyalty of even more men. So he planned to attack more places. But things eventually changed. The Antichrist will do the same thing. He will attack and plunder several nations in North Africa, including Egypt, Libya, Ethiopia, verses 42 and 43. He will turn back only after he hears disturbing news out of the east and the north, verse 44. The angel said, Antiochus Epiphanes shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. God controls all things, and he had drawn a line that Antiochus could not cross. Consider the fact that God said the Jews would serve the king of Babylon 70 years. The 2 witnesses will prophesy 1,260 days. Jesus said Jerusalem will be trampled by the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. And we're coming to that very close place now in history. Luke 21:24. Gabriel told Daniel the Messiah would appear 7 weeks and 62 weeks. That's 173,880 days after the command to restore and build Jerusalem. The angel was saying Antiochus will be limited in his days and will be and will be numbered. Concerning the Antichrist, it means the tribulation period will last 7 years or 2,520 days, and not 1 day more. We will soon see that the Antichrist will prosper until the wrath has been accomplished, verse 36. And we've already seen that the saints will be given into his hands for a time and times and a half time, Daniel 7:25. During the tribulation period, the Antichrist will attack and conquer many nations. He will use his booty and conquered territory to reward those wicked people who support him. Treason in the south, Daniel 11:25. He shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall devise plans against him. Here the angel predicted Antiochus Epiphanes would build up his forces and muster the courage to mount a great attack on Egypt. He predicted that Egypt would fight back with a powerful army, but Egypt would lose due to the plots devised against it. Antiochus Epiphanes attacked Egypt. This time the king of the south was another brother of Philometor, named Ptolemy Physcon. He pulled together a large army and fought back, but some of his men committed treason, deserted him, and joined Antiochus Epiphanes. Their unfaithfulness caused Egypt's defeat. The king of the south and his four-nation alliance will wage war against the Antichrist, but he will not be able to stand, and the Antichrist will defeat him and his army. Daniel received this vision, the vision of the Anointed One, 200 years before any of these battles occurred. Do not bite the hand that feeds you. Daniel 11:26. Yes, those who eat of the portion of his delicacies shall destroy him. His army shall be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. This angelic prediction identifies some of those who will be involved in the treason as those who eat from the king's provisions. In other words, the king of the south would be destroyed by members of his own court. That betrayal would lead to a military defeat and many casualties. Information is scarce, but it seems that most of the members of the court were related both to Ptolemy Physcon, the reigning king, and Ptolemy Philometor, the captured king, and some were more loyal to Ptolemy Philometor and believed Antiochus Epiphanes was just helping him recover his throne, so they betrayed Physcon. Egypt was defeated and many Egyptians were killed. Jesus celebrated the feast of Passover with his disciples in the upper room. After they finished eating, he humbly washed their feet, but was troubled in his spirit because he knew one of those he ate with would betray him. Out of friendship and love, he gave Judas Iscariot a piece of bread. Judas took a bite, quickly left, turned his back on the one who loved him more than anyone else. At the end of the age, Jesus said that many will betray one another and hate one another, Matthew 24:10. He said people would be betrayed even by parents and brothers, relatives and friends, and they will put some to death in Luke 21:6. Lies, lies, and more lies, Daniel 11:27. Both these kings' hearts shall be bent on evil, and they shall speak lies at the same table, but it shall not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. The angel told Daniel the king of the north, which is Syria, and the king of the south, Egypt, would sit at the same table. They would have evil in their hearts and lie to each other, but the lies would not aid either one, because the end would still come at the time of God's choosing. Antiochus Epiphanes and Ptolemy Philometor sat down to discuss the situation. They were supposedly going to settle their differences, but all they did was lie to one another. Revelation pictures the Antichrist arriving on the scene riding a white horse. Now, I looked that up. It's not sure that the the place where that happens in, I believe, Daniel 6, that it's really referring to Jesus. It very well may be someone else riding the white horse. Now, when Jesus talks about it, when John speaks of it in the book of Revelation, Jesus is the one who is doing the speaking as Jesus is explaining something, and Jesus, who will ride a white horse at his second coming, speaks about the one who will be riding a white horse, and he's not talking about himself. That's why most are believing that it's referring to this white horse and the one riding it. He will use peace to destroy many and a covenant to dupe Israel. His actions will make Antiochus Epiphanes look like an amateur, and the gullibility of Ptolemy will be exceeded only by the gullibility of our future government leaders. The Antichrist will come forth with a mouth that boasts great things and utters proud words. He will be an eloquent speaker and a tremendous negotiator. Speaking of Antiochus Epiphanes, he opposed God's covenant. Daniel 11:28. While returning to his land with great riches in his heart, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant. So he shall do damage and return to his own land. Here the angel prophesied that Antiochus would leave Egypt with a large amount of wealth and return to his own land, but he would oppose the covenant God had with Israel. All right? He would violate that covenant before returning home. It appeared, now how would he do it? Well, remember, he has this high priest in office. And whatever he tells the high priest to do will be violating the covenant position. All right? It appeared that Antiochus Epiphanes and Ptolemy Philometor had settled their differences around the conference table. A large amount of Egypt's wealth was handed over to Antiochus Epiphanes, and he headed back to Syria with his army. The route home took him through Israel. Things had changed in Israel since Antiochus Epiphanes had passed through on his way to Egypt. A rumor had circulated that Antiochus Epiphanes was dead, which caused many Jews to rejoice. Some of them had revolted and driven the Syrians out of Jerusalem. Antiochus Epiphanes learned of this as he neared Jerusalem and decided to make the Jews pay. God's covenant with Israel was not something he believed anyway, so he attacked and plundered the city, killed approximately 40,000 Jews, sold thousands more into slavery, looted the temple, and let his troops rape the women. Stephen Miller says, then Gabriel arrived at the real purpose of all the historical data to set the stage for the persecution of the Jewish people. When the Antichrist comes on the scene and history approaches the tribulation period midpoint, the Antichrist will appear to be killed by a fatal wound to the head. It will be a sword wound, and it will be healed to the amazement of the whole world. Now, how the commentator has decided it will be a sword wound, I haven't found that yet. But he may have found a scripture I haven't seen for that. Multitudes will follow him, and yet he will be worse than Antiochus Epiphanes ever thought of being. In connection with this, many prophetic writers believe that Zechariah's worthless shepherd is a type of Antichrist in Zechariah 11:17. He will be struck by a sword, causing his right arm to wither and his right eye to be blinded. Daniel 11:29, the angel says, at the appointed time he shall return and go toward the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. The angel told Daniel Antiochus Epiphanes would invade Egypt one more time, but things would be different this time. Antiochus Epiphanes was determined to conquer Egypt, so he tried again. His two nephews, Ptolemy Philometor and Ptolemy Physcon, had settled their differences and were sharing the throne. They opposed Antiochus Epiphanes and appealed to Rome for help. This next comment is they're back. Daniel 11:30. For ships from Cyprus shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return in rage against the holy covenant and do damage. All right, Antiochus Epiphanes would be so furious that he didn't get what he wanted when his nephews turned against him and so forth. He comes back to Israel. That's what it means, rage against the holy covenant. He comes back to do damage. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. He wants to show regard, friendliness, appreciation for those who are against the holy covenant. The angel predicted that Antiochus Epiphanes would be opposed by ships of the western coastlands. They would cause him to change his mind about invading Egypt again. He would turn around and vent his rage on the covenant of God one more time. He would deal kindly with those who abandoned the covenant. When the two Egyptian kings appealed to Rome for help, the Romans responded by sending their navy. Rome's naval commander met Antiochus Epiphanes at Alexandria and told him to get out of Egypt and leave the nation alone. The order was by decree of the Roman Senate, and if Antiochus did not obey, he would be attacked by Rome. Then the commander drew a circle on the ground around the feet of Antiochus and demanded that he not step out of it until he stated his intentions. Antiochus decided to leave Egypt. Antiochus Epiphanes headed home through Israel, but he was even more furious than before. His entire army was aware that he was afraid and running. So when he got to Jerusalem, he vented his anger and plundered the city again, killing thousands of Jews and selling thousands more into slavery. He outlawed the Jewish religion and replaced it with Greek worship. He outlawed circumcision and the reading of the scriptures and the observance of the Sabbath. Those who abandoned the Jewish faith were spared, but those who did not were killed. At the tribulation period, midpoint, Satan and his angels will be hurled down to earth. Now, he says out of heaven. I will say out of the heavens, okay? Because they're not residing in the third heaven with God. But they are in a position of some area of the heavens. Satan will know his time is short and he will be filled with fury. He will vent his fury on God's people and destroy whatever he can before the second coming of Christ. More contemptible acts. Daniel 11:31, and the forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary. We're talking, it's hard to get away from talking about the Antichrist and not think we're referring to the Antichrist when it says him. But he's talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. And the forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. They shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. So that's where Jesus gets that phrase, the abomination of desolation, when he talks about it in Matthew 24. The angel revealed that the army of Antiochus Epiphanes would desecrate the temple. See illustration 17. Well, they would abolish the daily sacrifice and set up the abomination that would make the temple desolate. Antiochus Epiphanes posted some of his troops to guard the temple with reserve troops nearby. The Sabbath came and thousands of Jews gathered at the temple to offer sacrifices and worship God. They were ignoring Antiochus Epiphanes, So he counted them among his enemies and had his army kill them. Then he built an altar to one of his Greek gods, brought in Jews, and compelled them to sacrifice pigs on it to his heathen gods. Those who refused were killed. He was insane and often referred to himself as the Greek god Zeus. He was a type of the Antichrist who will sit in the temple and call himself God, 2 Thessalonians 2:4. His outlawing Jewish worship and replacing it with Greek worship prefigures the Antichrist, bringing an end to the sacrifices and offering at the temple with a demand that people worship him, Daniel 9:27 and Revelation 13:15. His numbering those Jews who refused to stop their worship at the temple among his enemies and having them killed is a forerunner of the Antichrist, who will consider those who refuse to take the mark of the beast and worship him to be his enemies and therefore be killed. Revelation 13:15-18. Also, Antiochus Epiphanes placed an image of Zeus in the holy place at the temple. Jesus said the Antichrist will do this, and the Jews should flee into the mountains when this happens. Matthew 24:16-17. Ed Hinson says part of the deception perpetrated by the false prophet will be his power to give life to the image of the beast. The biblical text uses the word icon for image. It means a representation derived from a prototype or a perfect likeness. It looks like the real thing, but isn't. Doesn't that sound like AI? While we cannot be certain what the image of the beast refers to, more and more scholars are suggesting the possibility of a televised holographic image or a computer icon. Now remember, this was written several years ago, before AI was named AI. Thomas Ice and Timothy Demi say he believed himself to be Zeus, and on Kislev 25, which is December 16th, 167 BC, he defiled the temple in Jerusalem by erecting an altar to Zeus on the altar and offered swine's flesh as a burnt offering. He then directed that similar offerings be made monthly. Such defilement or abomination of desolation fulfilled Daniel's prophecy and ultimately led to the Maccabean Revolution. Daniel 11:32, flattery from hell. Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. And I think this is a direct reference to those of the Maccabean family who are able to be successful in their attack against Antiochus Epiphanes. It wasn't a success that totally freed them from everything, but it had many wonderful proponents to it. Daniel was informed by the angel that Antiochus Epiphanes would corrupt some of the unfaithful Jews with flattering words, but the faithful Jews would firmly resist him. The Jews had their share of traitors and lukewarm believers, some such as the new high priest Alcimus were even leaders in the Jewish religion. Antiochus Epiphanes courted them with flattering words in order to corrupt them to his false religion and use them against the faithful. Many who questioned the word of God were deceived, but a group of strong believers revolted. Jesus placed church members in one of these states or conditions, all right? Cold, lukewarm, or hot. The cold are pretenders who lack true spiritual life. The lukewarm are indifferent or straddling the fence. The hot are passionate about their love for him. This last group is the only one Jesus finds acceptable. The Maccabean period, Daniel 11:33. And those of the people who understand shall instruct many, yet for many days they shall fall by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Here the angel predicted that a group of wise people would teach many, but for a while they would be delivered up to tribulation in 4 ways. 1, some would be killed with a sword. 2, some would be killed by fire. 3, some would be captured. Some would be robbed. Number 4. A large number of Jews recognized the corruption, treachery, and false teachings of Antiochus Epiphanes. They wisely tried to remain faithful to God and teach others. Some who were called Hasidians revolted and fled to the mountains. They joined the Maccabees family and fought against Antiochus Epiphanes and the rulers who followed him. They carried on their struggle for independence for more than 100 years. Many died in war. Some were tortured and burned, while others were captured. Most had their villages and camps plundered and destroyed. A Jewish priest named Mattathias, who wanted the Jews to remain faithful to God, killed an unfaithful Jew who was about to offer a heathen sacrifice in the temple. Fearing for his life, Mattathias took his 5 sons, one of which was named Judas Maccabeus, and fled into the hills. The family became known as the Maccabees because of their subsequent revolt against Antiochus. They were very successful in their struggles against him, and so upset him that he could no longer eat, and he eventually died in his own land of malnutrition. There are several different accounts of how he died. We don't know that this is exactly how Antiochus Epiphanes died, all right? But he did die. For a time, the 7-year tribulation period, the Antichrist will be given power to make war against God's people and conquer them. The false prophet will set up an image and kill those who refuse to worship it. Many of God's people will fall. I think we're going to end here, and then next week we'll begin right here at 11:33 again, and then we'll be able, What page was that? Do we know? It was where? I don't know how. Oh, yeah, that's right. No, I think we'll begin in Daniel 11:36 next time. Oh, I was? Oh, I turned over to... You know what happened? I turned 2 pages at once. That's what happened. Pardon me, folks. All right, we'll begin with Daniel 11:33 next time. Okay? I know this gets a little pedantic sometimes, but we've only got that much to go. And not even that much. There, that much. I mean, obviously, we're not going to remember everything, but we're going to remember some of it. And over the years, we'll continue to read it as we read the Bible and more and understand more and more. Well, bless you all for hanging in there. I would thank you all who are online tonight and invite you to come on the Lord's Day. We'd love to have you visit, be with us in our worship service if you're anywhere nearby. We begin at 11 supposedly. We're getting closer to it. And we'd love to have you. 4160 Monroe Street, Los Angeles, California, 90029. You're always welcome. God bless you. Good night.